Silicon Valley, technology, art, green, and sustainability.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability, www SVTAGS. Today I'm very honored to have a lady with me who's done so much, Deborah Kennedy. And you're an artist, you're not a professor, a teacher, a lecturer?
Lecturer.
And have done so much interesting things. I can't wait to hear about what you're doing now, but tell us a little bit about your history and you and your life.
Oh, thank you, Heather, and I'm just delighted to be here. So I was born on the East Coast, and I think I heard that clarion call, go west, young woman, go west, and came out here in my early 20s and ended up living on a farm, milking cows. I used to be able to go and pick wild mushrooms, get scallions and fresh eggs and make my breakfast. And I was riding horses up in the hills in Marin, survived getting bucked off at a full gallop. And we also backpacked. We'd go up in the mountains, hike all day, carrying those packs up there, and then plunge into those ice-cold mountain streams. So I called it living in the heart of Western romance. I really love California. So many beautiful areas that are still and wide open, wild coast and mountains. So I loved it.
And when did you go to college for?
Well, I started then. I was working in restaurants as a cook, and then I started doing construction work.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that was great because I could work for a while, make enough money, I could go to college. And I started in community college, then graduated from UC Berkeley in art, and then came to San Jose and got my master's of fine art down here.
So were you doing frame-ups, or what were you doing in construction?
No, I did sheetrock taping, interior, exterior house painting. I helped put on a roof. I was sort of a Jane of all trades.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's just amazing. So Berkeley, and then now, I guess, let me pull up the first, actually, tell us about your art career before I pull up the first three slides.
Right. So those slides really relate to the work I was doing when I came out of school.
Okay.
So I was doing something called installation work. Installation work is a contemporary form of sculpture. So you think of sculpture sitting on a pedestal. Installation work is dimensional work that's woven into the fabric of the environment that it's in. So I was very lucky.
So not installation work like in a hospital. It's
Right.
installation in something that you may or may not realize it's art then?
Well, let's look at that first slide.
Okay,
and
let's bring up the first slide.
You
Yeah.
get to see it in action.
Yeah.
Because
This is amazing. So here's the first slide. Tell us about this.
So my husband had a Fulbright grant, an academic grant, and we went to Germany, and I knew they would send us up to Berlin. The Fulbright group had been sending their scholars up there since they had to send them in on sealed military trains. But this was 1989, and the military police state that was ruling East Germany was still well in place. And this slide shows, I actually did 4 pieces. So I was the last artist to do a series of major works on the wall before Die Wende, before the wall came down.
Let's bring up another slide here. I think the next one.
Yes.
So are these actually German police then?
Yes, so East Germany, it was a military police state, and they came out 9 times while I was working on the piece. So where that man is looking off screen there, at his feet is the actual border between East Berlin and West Berlin. And
is that a gun or a camera in his arms?
That man is videotaping.
Okay.
And they're standing in a defensive unit guarding him because just over the border at that man's feet, there are 150 people watching. And this was kind of a tense moment because the man with the camera turned around and started videotaping the crowd. And those 2 men are Stasi. They were the secret police of East Berlin. East Berlin was one of the most effective and brutal military police states. They used torture. They had almost 25% of the population. You couldn't even say anything in your own family home, right? So what I did was I went and collected the hopes and fears of ordinary people from East Berlin, West Berlin, and America, and put them on those metal plates so people divided by the wall spoke together about their basic concerns.
So did you have them etched then?
There was very thin metal, and I actually used like a stylus to press them in.
So you actually wrote it yourself?
Yeah.
You
so
must have great penmanship.
Well, pretty good. Good enough.
Do you have any photos of the actual close-up of that?
Yes, I didn't include those, but from a distance, it looks kind of like a window.
Yeah.
So it picks up the light, and so that was another way of kind of challenging the notion of the wall, like light was coming through. And then people would go up closer.
And you said this was 89?
It was it was in the summer of '89.
Wow. So maybe later you can send us a photo of the close-up, and we could post that on the website.
Oh, that would be fun.
So that would be fun.
Yeah.
Let's pull up the third slide on this topic. So here is an article about it. And what's with this here?
So when I returned home, 6 months later, the wall fell. Who could imagine that? I mean, I talked to people in East Berlin when I was there, and they were saying, very exciting what's happening in Russia. But here in East Germany, another 2,000 years, Honecker will be in power. Who could imagine in 6 months something that was such a powerful system, so knit into the fabric of those people's lives, could suddenly just seem to evaporate overnight? Now, how does that relate to my environmental work? That kind of a change gives me tremendous hope that we can make these kind of profound changes that we need to make to improve our environmental situation.
And you're a teacher right now, or a professor or a lecturer? Explain that too for us.
Right. So
and how that kind of ties into what you've been doing, and yeah.
Teaching has been very important to me in my life. So it's very exciting to me to work with students, help them learn about their creative process, and find what they want to communicate about. And I mainly have taught in community colleges. I don't have a full-time position, so that's why I'm a lecturer. And but
in City College, West Valley?
San Jose City College.
San Jose City College,
yes.
okay.
So it's our local community college.
I was thinking it was Mission College, but okay, so City.
But in 1999, I was invited to have a museum show at the Executive Museum. The Executive is at Santa Clara University. And when I was invited to do that show, I developed a class in conjunction with it. So I taught for a number of years in their environmental studies program.
At Santa Clara University.
That's right.
Let's pull two of those slides up. Let's pull the first one up now. And I think we have them in reverse order. But so tell us about this one here, and then we'll go to the other one that should be first.
Right. This is students from Santa Clara, and they're in my exhibition. And so I taught a class, I exhibited a work that I did in conjunction with those students in the museum show. And then I hosted a lot of meetings with students.
So what are they doing in this photo here?
Well, let's go to the next one. I
Okay,
think
let's
you'll
go to the
see
next
a little
one.
better what that is. Okay, so in the front, what you're seeing is what's called the Ring of Life.
Okay.
This whole show, this part of the show is called Project Nexus.
And the top looks like maybe the tree of life with the roots above,
yes.
sort of?
I was really thinking about the burning bush,
Okay.
because it's a Jesuit institution,
Okay.
and it's one of the few times a plant was a symbol of the divine. So that circle right there was based on the research of a professor, Professor Billings, and he was the first botanist to really start understanding how a living ecosystem supports a plant or an animal or a human being. So around the outer edge are all the forces and substances that act and interact to create a living environment.
For example?
So earth, air, fire, water, plants, humans, our ancestors, but he broke it down a little bit more finely than that.
And so those are the elements on the outside.
Right.
Okay. And hanging in the background, what's hanging in the background besides the burning bush?
We have like a curtain of leaves.
Okay.
And then beyond that, there was an empty circle. So that represented to me the parts that are already gone. So that's like things that have already become extinct.
So say extinction of animals and plants and various things.
But on this side, we can still act. And that Ring of Life was actually an interactive sculpture. So I had this problem. I mean, the original circle was a drawing. how was I going to make those lines in space? So I actually used piano technology, the pins and the wires so that I could tighten them, and then it became a musical instrument that people could play. So I had students create compositions to be played on that instrument.
So that's what they were doing in the first one. They were playing
they
the
were
instruments.
interacting with it.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
So is that exhibit, has it gone away? Is it in your home? Where's the exhibit now?
That's sort of the joy and the sorrow of installation work. It's something that is generally temporary. So the parts are still close to home, but this show was up for 6 months, which was really marvelous because I put so much into that exhibition.
Oh, it sounds like fun. I want to play with it.
yeah, it was kind of.
Maybe it can be revived at San Jose Museum of Art or somewhere in the future.
Right, that would be nice.
So now we met. You said your son gave you my card, and because you're doing a book, Nature Speaks. I'm going to actually hold the book up if we can get a little close up of this. And it's just beautiful. I haven't read it yet because this is hot off the press, so people can order on Amazon. They can go to the website later, your website, and they can order it. And on the inside here, you said I should open this, so we're going to open this. So tell us about the book.
Yes, so after I did the show at the SVTAGS, I really felt like I wanted to talk more fully and more directly about some of these issues that I was learning about. This is my little walk into my world invitation to the book, and it's all redwood trees. So I started writing poetry, and some of the people in my life at that point were like, "You're doing what?"
So you had never done poetry before, and all the artwork you did. I mean, it was kind of poetry what you did on the wall, right?
You.
I mean,
I think there is some truth to that. Those were other people's words, but some of those words, like somebody said, "I fear that people are growing ever harder and will no longer have any more heart." So there were beautiful little bits in that piece that were like pieces of poetry. I had always written, and my grandfather was a poet. So I just felt like that show was so much work. It was a lot of lifting. And I went, paper, so light. And also with a book, it gets reproduced and hopefully sent out into the world. It doesn't just have to be you sending that message out. And so I started writing the poems. And after a few years, I went, I'm an artist. I can illustrate this. That had not really been my forte, was two-dimensional work, but I started creating these earth-toned illustrations.
so this is all your illustrations then,
Yes,
too.
yes.
I'm going to pull up another slide. I think this is slide 4. And this is actually the web of life. Tell us about this first page here.
Yeah, so this is a sample from the book, and you see again that shape that was in the piece in my show at the SVTAGS. And so there's the circle and all the points, and then I've illustrated some of those there's the sun, there's pollen, water, and air. And then there's the poem about the web of life, and then on the next page...
We can pull up the next page. There we go.
Then there's a detail very often of these illustrations. Some of these illustrations took 40 hours.
Wow.
So they're very detailed.
Wow.
So there's kind of big picture, little picture, and then there's the about section. And in the about section, I discuss some of these ideas. So in this one, I explain about Professor Billings and his ideas about the holocoenotic theory of environmental complexity.
It is amazing. So how long did it take you? You told me the other day, but for the audience, how long did it take you to do this book?
Honestly, I've been working on it for 10 years.
Well, I had 15 in my head for some reason, but 10.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a while. And what again inspired you to do this? Was it the poetry from your father? Was it the fact that you love the environment? What inspired you?
Well, it kind of was bringing together all of my interests. There was the art, there's the science, there's the environment, but also I feel like we're in sort of a very critical time now. So we're reaching what are called tipping points. Either we stop delaying on a lot of these problems, or they're going to start getting much worse, much faster. President Obama said the other day that climate change trends are terrifying. And that's really true. So there's a saying that is attributed to Kafka. And it is that art is an axe to break open the frozen river in our hearts. So I feel like as an artist, my own art breaks open my own heart and helps me to feel. And I'm trying to share that with other people. Because I think sometimes we think that we're just tinkering a new law. We do need new laws, but we need that kind of profound change that occurred in Berlin and West Germany and East Germany. We need to have a real change in the way we think about the environment. All of us need to bring these issues to the center of our lives and to the center of our work. And that's not easy. It's not easy.
So some say art and nature, you know, it's hard to tell the difference in some things. And it was funny because my mother wanted to watch the swamp something last night, the swamp monsters. And, you know, there was these frogs that were giant poisonous frogs that look like rocks. And so art and the environment, so important. And this poetry that you're doing, I think it's a great thing. I'm going to pull up another slide now. And this is slide 8. And these, I think, are some is this from your book then?
This is from the new book.
The new book.
So I figure if it took me 10 years, I better get started.
Well, do you have a first book, or this is?
Well, Nature Speaks is my first book.
Okay.
And
so what is this one here with it looks like a bee, and tell us about this.
Yeah, so the second book is, I've done illustrations, and the first book, I wrote the poem and then I did the illustration. In this book, I'm starting with the illustrations, so I'm kind of inspired by something called ekphrastic poetry.
Okay.
Ekphrastic poetry is when poets go and look at an artist's work and then write a poem about it. And I realized I could do my own art and write a poem about my own art. So that little bee is venturing into sort of a scientific, technological environment.
It kind of looked like the sun, but again, really flat, so that makes sense, yeah.
Down below is what's an image based on a Smith chart, and that's used by electrical engineers. And then behind it is the electrons swinging around. That's how they draw an atom, right? So this little bee is encountering these technological elements in the society.
How long does it take you to do a piece like that?
That one was probably more like 20 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So 40, 20, it takes quite a while.
It takes a while.
And they're so beautiful. And was it pastels or oils or ink and oil or?
Yeah, all of these are inks.
Inks.
Yeah, ink on paper.
I would have thought pastel. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, ink and pastel combination.
Sometimes I put a little pastel in for highlights, that's true.
So let's bring up the next slide, slide 9, which this is just beautiful. Tell us about this one.
This is one of the images for the new book, and I started doing these drawings and using blue, which was a whole new thing, very exciting for me. And I started doing these sort of marine, sort of submarine looking images. So
they almost look like not octopuses, but I don't know, sea urchins or
yes.
Yeah.
And I started realizing some of them look like plankton. So I started doing research about plankton, and I have plankton on the brain now. I'm just so excited about plankton. Plankton created our first oxygenated atmosphere, and every second breath we take is thanks to plankton. So we used to think it was more the forests and the plants that were creating our oxygen, but the plankton are these little creatures in the sea and other water, some of them kind of like plants. Those are the ones that produce an amazing amount of oxygen.
Yeah, it's interesting, the ocean and how much rejuvenation it gives to us, and we don't realize this.
Yeah.
And there's been the fungus issue recently in the bay, and they think that's related to the sea lions not getting enough nourishment, and they're finding baby sea lions starving up on the beaches here in Northern California. I think in Southern too. So it's interesting how it's all, you know, it's just all interconnected, and everyone's connected, we're all connected, and it's interesting,
right.
You know, finding this out more and more. Talk about birds in your book, and we're going to bring up that slide right now too. The focus on birds. This is a great, I mean, it looks like it's almost like a splatter painting.
I did do layers of splattering of the ink for this one, and someone said it almost looked like a Paleolithic cave drawing. You know, it sort of has that texture.
It does.
So this poem was about, I was taking a hike, and I looked up, and a rough-legged hawk, a hawk I had never seen before, suddenly just pulled up over my head. And they have a 4-foot wingspan, and it started doing something that I've seen kestrels, small birds do, which is it was pounding its wings up and down, its head absolutely frozen against the sky. And they do that when they're hunting, because with their heads still, they can see motion much better. And then it just flew off again. So such an exciting moment for me. And there are a number of poems about birds, and one of them also discusses how when early explorers came to the Bay Area, they reported there were so many birds around the bay that they would shoot off their guns, and a cloud of birds would go up, and it would actually make it look like it was twilight. There were so many it would occlude the light of the sun.
Interesting.
They didn't even have to shoot at any one bird. They would just shoot wildly, and the birds would rain down. So now here I am, so excited seeing a single green heron or a single rough-legged hawk. The fertility and the abundance of wildlife in the past must have been so exciting.
Well, and it's interesting, they're restoring the bay now, the salt lands
Yes.
and the wetlands, and there's the whole area there now where the birds are coming back. It's a great place to go walk your dog or just take a
Yes.
stroll.
And that's part of the good news on birds. So globally, we're having what's called the avian decline, and bird populations are dropping in America and around the globe. But in America, one group is rebounding just tremendously, and that's wetland birds. And it's because we're restoring these wetlands and protecting them.
So women's issues, and in your book, do you touch on that at all?
I do. I have a number of poems that reflect on the chemical contamination in breast milk, how endocrine disruption is affecting all of us. So endocrine disruptors are chemicals that mimic the hormones in our body. And when a fetus is forming, it's a cascade of hormonal signals that directs the proper formation of the neurological system and the reproductive system. And so many of our children are having problems, right? 1 in 10 couples are infertile. So many children with autism and other attention deficit problems, childhood leukemia increasing, and brain tumors. So I think—
And part of that's probably environment, but also population, where we're living, stress levels. It's a whole combination of different things.
Yes, but one doctor, I think the medical profession should talk more about this, but one doctor, a prominent doctor at Mount Sinai Hospital for Children, said, "We're experiencing an epidemic of disease in our children, and it's increasing so rapidly, it cannot be all genetic. It's certainly not exclusively chemicals, but like the Environmental Working Group just did a test of umbilical cord blood and found that babies have up to 185 detectable chemicals in their blood already."
Wow.
Yeah.
We only have a few minutes left, so I usually like to ask guests what the biggest challenge has been and what the best accolade has been. Tell us quickly those two things for you, and being a publisher or artist, or even maybe in your personal life, what the hardest thing's been and how you've overcome it, and then any big wins that you want to tell us about.
Well, finishing the book was trying to pull together a project of this complexity. At 3/4 of the way through, I said, why did I think this was a good idea to do the illustrations and the poems and the writing? But it's a unique vision, and it kind of gives us 3 different ways to look at these issues, kind of like a prism. In terms of accolades, there's been, I've had grants from the California Arts Council, our local arts council. I've been on the front page of the Mercury News. I've been in a book in Germany. But the personal accolades are the ones that mean the most to me. So I had a student when I was an artist in residence, and I worked with him, and he went on and graduated from art college and came back 20 years later and really thanked me and said, "You showed me I had a choice and a voice." And I said, I'm going to steal that. So, making a difference in somebody's life like that is what really will continue on for me.
I think we have one more slide, and it's the community slide. Let's pull that up really quick. We do. So I always also like to ask, is there something the community can help you with?
Yeah, I really am searching for interested groups of people that I can do a lecture to. So I show the illustrations, and then I read the poem, I discuss the issues, and then have a discussion with the audience. And I also do workshops where a lot of times people want to write, but they don't know what to write about. So I kind of share my creative process. And so we look at nature, maybe take photos, draw, and then write about it.
That's wonderful. I definitely have some people I can send you to speak. At least 5 groups off the top of my head.
Oh my gosh, that would be so terrific.
So we'll get you there. And is there any other final thoughts you want to leave the audience with? Anything that you'd like to let them know about you or the book, or yeah?
I do have some upcoming events, and I've set up a Facebook author page. And so invite people to come and to see what's going on. I'm going to be part of the Watershed Festival on October 1st.
And that's an annual festival?
It's an annual
So if they
festival.
missed this one, then maybe next year, yeah.
That's right, and it's it's an environmental poetry festival.
In Berkeley,
In Berkeley,
Oakland? Okay.
Yeah. And so I'll be there. But also what I'm calling for is a green enlightenment. So the first enlightenment occurred in France in the 1700s, and people dedicated themselves to science, dedicated themselves to a new idea, dare to think. Well, in the green enlightenment, we need to dare to think and dare to care.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a pleasure, and we didn't get to all the questions, so maybe we'll have to have you back, or we'll have an event with you.
That
there
sounds
you go.
great.
And to the audience, thank you for joining us. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, www.svtags.org, and make this a great week by conserving, reusing, and rethinking the way that you choose to live here in Silicon Valley and beyond. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.